Do you love a deal? I love a deal. Everybody loves a deal. In this video, we're going to count down the top 10 cheapest states to live in the US and see if they really are a bargain or just cheap. So what makes a state either cheap or expensive to live in? Well, it's more than just the cost of a house or the cost of rent. You have to take everything in your daily living into consideration. And that includes the cost of gas and transportation, the price of groceries and eating out, the cost of healthcare, the cost of energy, and even how much childcare costs. When you take all these factors into consideration, economists and number crunchers come up with something called the cost of living index, which tells you how much more expensive or cheaper it is to live in a state versus the nation as a whole. And that national average cost of living index is set at 100. So if a state has a cost of living number less than 100, it's cheaper than the national average. And if it's more than 100, it's more expensive than the national average. So what are the 10 states with the lowest cost of living index? Well, let's get moving. Number 10, Indiana. With a cost of living index of 90.6, Indiana is about 10% cheaper to live in than the national average. And one of the biggest drivers of these numbers is the median home price, which right now is just about $180,000. And that is ridiculously low compared to most of the country, where the median home price for the whole country is north of $400,000. But Indiana is also one of the most states in the country. It literally sits in the middle of just about every category of rankings other than affordability. Sure, it's got Purdue University and is home to the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, but other than that, and maybe Bobby Knight if you're old enough to remember his glory days, there's not a lot of pizzazz to the state. It's just kind of as vanilla as it gets. I mean, when one of your biggest NBA stars is Reggie Miller, okay. But that may also be one of the reasons it's a great place for you to look closer at, especially if you're coming from a more frenetic atmosphere and are craving a simpler, more mellow lifestyle. Number 9, West Virginia. Now, if you thought Indiana had cheap housing, then welcome to West Virginia, where the median cost of a house is ridiculously low, about the cost of a fully loaded new Range Rover. So I guess you could just decide to buy that and live in your car, or get a home in West Virginia. But that low housing cost comes with its own set of pros and cons. West Virginia is absolutely gorgeous with this Appalachian landscape and a true 4-season climate. It's a stunning place to visit. And if you're coming to retire or are independently well off, it offers a lot of advantages. But if you're going to be looking for work, you may end up looking for a long while because the unemployment rate here is perennially high. And the job prospects outside of the energy sector, primarily coal, are stunningly low. And while you're trying to find work, you may end up falling victim to becoming one of the economic casualties of the state, which has one of the highest poverty rates in the country. And to put the cherry on top, West Virginia fell just outside of our rankings of worst states to live in the US at number 39. So yes, it's affordable. But it's that way for a reason. Number 8, Iowa. Now, as long as you don't mind flat as a pancake with no mountains and you have a deep appreciation for all things corn, Iowa could definitely be one of those states that's not just cheap, but really is a bargain. Iowa has a relatively strong and robust economy, not a lot of poverty, with a poverty rate 11% below the national average. And if you've got kids in school, they have a fantastic top 10 ranked education system. as well as having a lot of the intangible values and culture that should at least give those kids the opportunity to grow up with a steady head on their shoulders. And just as important, the median home price is right around the $260,000 mark. And even at that budget, you can find a great home with some land or at least space to make your own. The only real drawbacks besides no mountains or beaches really seems to be the pretty long and pretty cold winters. Definitely a solid number 8 on our list. Number 7, Missouri. Can't decide whether you want to live in one of the southern states or the Midwest? Then our number 7, Missouri, may be just the place for you. Housing costs in Missouri are just about 20% less than the national average, and there are some decent job opportunities, especially with their relatively high state minimum wage rate of $11.50 per hour. Where you run into some of the less desirable numbers in the state is the big urban center, places like St. Louis. And here you see a disproportionately high amount of crime compared to many other relatively peaceful neighborhoods and areas in the state. But because the population is so high in these big urban areas, it drags down the entire state's crime and safety ranking. Additionally, Missouri isn't exactly known for its great weather. The summers can get extremely hot and humid, and the state sits dead in the middle of Tornado Alley. So if you've watched the news, maybe you know that Missouri isn't the best place to invest in a mobile home. Number 6, Tennessee. I was actually a bit surprised to see Tennessee make the list of the 10 cheapest states to live in. During the last couple of years, Tennessee has been drawing in new residents from across the country and world to its fast-growing cities like Nashville, which has been booming, and prices for homes getting higher in those areas than Snoop Dogg. But even with those booming areas, the median price for a home in Tennessee is right about $350,000, which is about 12% lower than the national average. And if you go to some of the less trendy and hot areas like Nashville, that number trends significantly lower, while still getting a solid quality of life and opportunity to grow. Tennessee is also one of the handful of states that has no state tax on earned income, which has been a real reason for the influx of people relocating to the state. And with these financial benefits on top of the fact that if you love or even like music, whether country, rock, or blues and jazz, and as home to Jack Daniels and other big whiskey brands, Tennessee may be a great place to consider as your new home. That brings us halfway through our list of the 10 cheapest states to live in. I'd love to hear what your opinion is so far in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss out on more deep dives into all the areas of our big, beautiful country. Number 5, Georgia. With a cost of living index of 88.8, Georgia has a lot more going for it than just the Braves, Falcons, Hawks, and all those peaches. It is also the business hub of the South, with just about every Fortune 500 company having a significant presence, a strong startup and tech economy, and of course, home to the most iconic brand in the world, Coca-Cola. Housing costs for the states are about the same as our number 6 Tennessee, coming in at $346,000 for a single family home versus the national average of just over $400,000. And especially if you move outside of the bigger urban areas like Atlanta or Savannah, there are still a lot of opportunities to find a great home with enough land to spread out on. And if you're outdoorsy, there's a ton of diverse outdoor activities and areas for you to go and recreate, whether it's hunting and fishing, hiking and camping, or spending time on the water. Georgia has a place for you to go and enjoy God's country. But like most beauty, it comes at a price. If you suffer from allergies, now may be a good time to invest in some Claritin, because the allergy season here is off the charts. And don't even get me started on the summers here. It gets brutally hot and humid and makes you glad you live in the era of modern technology with things like air conditioning to make it bearable. I always wondered when watching movies like Gone with the Wind, which is based in Atlanta, and you see them wearing full formal attire all the time, even just to check the mail, what did they smell like? I mean, when I'm in Atlanta in the summer, I literally need a shower after my shower. Oh well, the mysteries. Number 4, Alabama. Yes, Alabama is cheap to live in, with a cost of living index of 87.9. But is there a reason? Sure, the median price of a home is more than 30% less than the national average. But maybe that's because they have one of the highest poverty rates in the country. But I find it a little weird. Alabama has a super high poverty rate, but at the same time has a pretty low unemployment rate, which doesn't square up on its face. But maybe it's because so many of the wonderful people of the state have just given up on finding a traditional job and are all good and happy with living off the abundance of the land that they're blessed with. And as a result, businesses just don't seem to invest in the area, and there aren't a lot of jobs to go after to begin with. Just make sure that if you're making Alabama your new home, that you're in good health, because with a healthcare system ranking of 46th in the country, finding a good doctor may be as hard as finding a beer in some areas on a Friday night. Number 3, Oklahoma. Tying Alabama with a cost of living index of 87.9 is Oklahoma. A big part of that number comes from the fact that the median price for a home is more than 30% below the national average. On top of that, the cost of groceries and healthcare are both significantly below the national averages as well. Although the healthcare that is available should probably be given away, since they rank dead last in the country for their healthcare system. The good news is that you get all 4 seasons living in Oklahoma. The bad news, one of those seasons is tornado season, making it another state where investing in a mobile home may not be the smartest move. But the views and the scenery in Oklahoma, oh wait, I mixed that up. There's really nothing to look at and no real discernible scenery in Oklahoma. It's flat and, well, pretty boring. Number 2, Kansas. With a cost of living index of 86.5, Kansas is definitely a serious contender. With the median home price more than 30% below the national average, it can definitely be a great place to put on your ruby slippers and call home. And as Dorothy found out, Kansas does have its climate drawbacks. It has a brutal annual tornado season that rivals anywhere else in Tornado Alley. But it's not just the tornadoes. Kansas is also prone to extreme droughts that can wreak havoc on everything in the state. But one area that Kansas does shine in is the barbecue space. With their slow and low style of barbecue, just about any protein can be elevated to a culinary masterpiece. Barbecue has been a staple of the area since at least the early 1900s, and we're not talking about the big chains like Famous Dave's or Chili's baby back ribs. We're talking about mouth-watering delicacies and recipes passed on in little mom and pop restaurants that dot the area with their traditions and unique take on the Q that have been perfected over generations. Just doing this segment is making me hungry. And finally, our number 1 cheapest state to live in, Mississippi. Mississippi's cost of living index of an incredibly low 83.3 is both a blessing and a curse. As you would expect, the median home price is more than 35% below the national average. But there's reasons for that. Most Mississippians simply can't afford to buy anything more expensive. The state has a poverty rate of nearly 20%, and their economy is ranked dead last in the country at number 50. So yes, You can live in the state for not a lot of money, but it's more out of necessity than great planning. In fact, it's probably that lack of planning and foresight that has them in this position to begin with. And pile on to that the fact that their healthcare system is number 48 and their education system is number 38, and you've got a recipe for, yes, a lower cost of living, but what about quality of life and opportunity to advance and get better? I don't know. Mississippi is in a pretty deep hole. If you like this list of the 10 cheapest states to live in, you need to check out this video I'm putting up going through the 10 most expensive states to live in. Remember, we're all in this together. Thanks for watching. The Relocation King out.